I don't wanna go to school tomorrow, I can't study thinking about you. And you know I always do. I don't wanna go to sleep tonight when I can stay up thinking about you. And you know I always do. Marlboro nights. Marlboro nights.
He's singing, she's a lady, and I am just a boy. He's singing, she's a lady, and I'm just a line without a. Oh baby, I am a wreck when I'm without you. I need you here to stay. Drag my feet along the floor, then I see you. You're walking across the campus, cool professor studying romances. How am I supposed to pretend I never want to see you again? How am I supposed to pretend I never want to see you again?
My favorite Met Gala theme was the 2013 punk-inspired Chaos to Couture. And what is more punk-inspired than making your full Met Gala dress out of unconventional fabrics? Let's do it. HomeGoods had some amazing wrapping papers that looked nothing like paper and looked so much like fabric. I started the process by creating that pattern and then cutting out my fabrics. I made sure that my plaids were going to clash in a super fun way. I stitched the paper together, which is a little risky because I know it can perforate it, but what I did was I pressed it flat and beautiful in the back and then used tape to reinforce the seams. I'm using this black satin ribbon to create an abstract plaid pattern over the existing plaid. I'm also going to bind the edges of this crinoline that I had left over from another project so I can have a big skirt. Now let's make the paper part of the skirt. It's going to be multiple layers of clashing plaids, and after I tape them on, I'm going to pleat them in a specific direction, and then I'm going to treat the bottom of them like a bubble hem because I think it makes it feel more like fabric. I wanted this dress to feel like a Vivienne Westwood 1980s punk dream, and I think I definitely accomplished it. I'm super excited about the way it turned out. What do you guys think?
Day one of making Ariana Grande's Grammy dress, and yes, it's day one because this is huge. The original dress took 200 hours. I don't have that time, so I have a hoop skirt. That stain is from a project gone wrong. I got the skirt and the mannequin from Amazon. We don't need these, so yeet them. Step one, we have to cover this. We're gonna make a skirt using 5 yards of 108-inch fabric. I use this app to calculate how much I need. It gives you your waist, how much fabric you need, and a diagram. I laid it out on the ground, folded it over, and I marked out our skirt. Time to cut and sew. So there's a skirt on the mannequin, now it's time for the tulle. I'm going to use 12 yards of it for the bottom part of the skirt. I'm using a regular foot with a basting stitch to gather. Now I have to hand gather this to a manageable amount. Okay, pinned on, time to sew down. Now repeat till you get to the top. Your final layers go all the way to the floor. Come back for part 2. Since it doesn't appear that TikTok is going anywhere anytime soon, I thought I'd show you guys my take on the famous strawberry dress that's been floating around on the internet. I have this really big photo shoot coming up that's in this gorgeous sunflower field, and I thought this dress would be the perfect addition to the shoot. Here you can see that I'm French seaming the bodice, and of course no dress could be complete without my famous puffy sleeves. For the skirt, I'm doing a full-length half-circle skirt out of this gorgeous pink silk taffeta. And of course a corgi break, even if it's glitching. For the waist, we're doing something a little bit different. I am sewing in an elastic casing to add elastic to the waist. I think this complements the cute peekaboo front and the bow much better. What do you guys think? This is a 60-second puffy sleeve tutorial. Today we are starting on the Air Nomad look, and I am doing it out of this beautiful sequin spandex and spandex lining. Both of these materials are really hard to work with, and I don't have a lot of experience with either one, so this was quite a challenge. Even though these sequins are small enough to be sewn over, you still have to be careful because tragedy can strike anywhere and anytime, like this. I only lost one needle in the process, thankfully, but definitely go slow with your zigzag stitch. And while it takes a little bit longer, you definitely need your corgi break in there, but in the end, this is what it came out looking like. Come back for part 2. This was our stopping spot yesterday, so it is time to move on to the skirt. We're going to start by cutting a circle skirt base out of this gorgeous organza and then gathering it down so it fits at the waist. The closure for this skirt is going to be in the front so you can show off that beautiful bodysuit. Next, it was just time to cut out a series of multi-size rectangles that are going to be draped around the skirt at different points. Because this style of skirt doesn't have a set pattern, it was just me pinning these rectangles around the skirt at the waist to see what looked best. Of course, then we had our corgi break. Next, we carefully stitch all of the pinned rectangles to the circle skirt base, add a waistband, and there you have it, the finished Air Nomad look. If you're just joining us, this is where I left off on the black wedding dress the other day, and now we are moving on to the skirt. We are starting on the base skirt by overlocking the edges of this silk and then adding a French seam. This skirt is really important because we are going to be adding tons of black sparkle tulle to it. I edged each piece of tulle with 275 yards of horsehair hem. It took me about 10 hours, so I set it all on the table and went to bed. Starting fresh in the morning, I pinned it all down and then went in meticulously and hand sewed every single one of the ruffles. After that, I attached the bodice to the skirt and added a bias tape hem to hide the raw edges. And this is what she ended up looking like. The bride was super happy with how it came out, and I really loved her design, and I'm so blessed that I got to bring it to life for her. It's pumpkin dress time. Now, if you didn't see the video where I actually made the pumpkin dress fabric, not to worry because we are assembling the dress today, so you didn't miss anything. Now, this fabric sheds like crazy, so be prepared to get glitter on everything. Here I'm stitching together the outer layer. I will add a lining so it doesn't itch against your skin. But first we have a corgi break. After this, I went ahead and gathered down the sleeves, and then I went and gathered down the skirt as well and attached it all together. After stitching it together, I added an orange waistband, and here you are, the pumpkin dress. We are making magic today with a fantastic dress inspired by a new indie film starring Carrie Fisher and Rita Ora called Wonderwell. Now, I am basing my dress off of the amazing gardens that Carrie's character has in the forest. Now, because her garden is so lush, I wanted to add many different floral layers to this dress, including flowers I made myself. And like the layers of a garden, this dress had tons of layers of fabric as well as 100 hand-sewn flowers. In the end, the dress came out as beautiful as the gardens themselves and gives off good witch vibes. Today, I'm going to show you guys how to make a feathered / sugar daddy robe. You are going to want to start with a pattern. This is a free pattern from Mood Fabrics. You just put your email in and download it. After you've downloaded, you want to print it out and then cut all of your pattern pieces out of 7 yards of fabric. I'm using tricot because it is a tighter weave than tulle but looser than chiffon. Because the robe is sheer, I am French seaming all of my seams. This is time consuming, but once it's done, it should look something like this. And now you're ready for feathers. For my trim, I am using 7 boas or 14 yards of turkey feathers, and they all have to be sewn on by hand because you can't run it through the sewing machine. This is the most time-consuming part of the whole project, but once you are done, the robe looks gorgeous, it comes out really nice, and for more information, check out my YouTube. I've been sitting on this fabric for a while, so I thought it was time to make something. And originally it was inspired by like a sugar plum fairy look using this pink silk, but it kind of evolved out of there, once I got Rosie off the fabric, of course. I went with a pattern that I know pretty well, but I haven't done in a long time because I've been feeling like a lack of inspiration lately, so it was kind of important to do something familiar and that I enjoyed. There is no extravagant boning to this, and I ended up doing my puffy sleeves because I thought that would look nice. Somebody said as I was working on this that it reminded them of those circus cookie snacks we had as kids, and once I started working on it, I couldn't unsee that. This is where I thought I wanted to stop, but the next morning I decided to add some bows, and it turned out really cute, and I'm really happy with it, even if it reminds me of those circus cookies. We are back to making Barbie dresses with the highly requested 2009 Holiday Barbie. Now I took some creative liberties with this, and we are doing a pleated tulle ball gown skirt with a beautiful silk lining. Because this is a ball gown, it is pretty straightforward. We are just going to gather down all of our layers, being mindful they don't get caught in the machine, and then use a regular stitch to stitch it at the waist. To give the bodice some structure, I added some Ridgeline boning to the lining, and then stuck it on my mannequin to see how it was looking. We cannot forget our corgi break. From there, it was time to gather down the bust ruffle and stitch it on to the bodice front before sticking it on the mannequin and deciding it was time to move on to the bow. I am using the same technique as the last Barbie dress by using a cotton batting between the bow layers and then adding a running stitch to gather it down. And here she is, the final look. I am super happy with how she came out, and I hope you guys love her. We are on to our last holiday Barbie, which is the 2020 Barbie. This is actually the Barbie that started it all, so it was really important for me to get this one right. And though I know sequins are hard to sew on, I decided to go with it anyway before adding 3 different skirt layers. The first 2 made out of curtains, and the final one made out of upholstery brocade. The arm flounces are just 2 circles that I then added Ridgeline in to help stand up. After that, I sewed everything together and had a corgi break. Because this is a special Barbie that I'm actually giving my niece as her first holiday Barbie, I thought it would be nice if I made her a matching dress to the life-size one. After a little bit of modification, this is what she got, and this one is the life-size one. I hope you guys love her.
Watch my sewing glow up.
Poke it out, Betty, poke it out.
Poke it out. She passed away? Oh. All right.
Please enjoy this impulse project that actually ended up giving me big Winx Club vibes. I hadn't set out to do any project, but these scraps that I had really spoke to me, so that's where we went. Since this whole look was super organic and new, it was definitely a trust the process kind of dress. The best part of sewing is the corgi break, of course. Fun fact about those fake flowers at craft stores, they're already made of fabric, so if you just take the plastic out, you can sew them to any of your clothing, which is what I did here for the fairy dress. Not bad for an impulse project.
Corset top? Say less.
Bring the action.
When you have this in the club, you gotta turn the shit up. You gotta turn the shit up. You gotta turn the shit up. When we up in the club, all eyes on us. All eyes on us. All eyes on us. See the boys in the club.
I was a girl in the village doing alright. Then I became a princess overnight. Now I gotta figure out how to do it
Just like the white-winged dove sings the song, sounds like she's singing. Ooh, baby, ooh, say ooh. Just like the white-winged dove sings the song, sounds like she's singing. Ooh, baby, ooh, say ooh.
To start, you have to show a look, have a look, or give a look. Faces, beautiful, no one ugly allowed.
sketched this dress out for my client. Now let's make it. Today I'll be using an Art Deco silk brocade from Mood Fabrics, as well as a silk satin and a sheer nude knitting. I've used a style line tape to place my seams, and now I'm tracing out my pattern. Once my pattern is finished, it's time to cut out that fabric. Now let's stitch our bodice together. After stitching, make sure that you press your seams. It makes everything look more professional. See? Now that the sleeves are sewn on, we're going to sew a gather stitch about 1/8 of an inch around the bottom edge. And after doing so, we'll pull one of the threads to create a gather and give us our bishop sleeve shape. Also, it helps if you press them out so that when you're sewing your cuff on, it gives you a really clean line and keeps the gathers in place. Also, don't forget to top stitch when you sew on your cuff. And here's our finished bodice. I know my mannequin looks bad, but it's exactly my client's measurements, so I'm using it. It's now time to pleat and sew our skirt and lining onto the bodice. And here's the finished dress. I hope you guys love it as much as I do. I know my client does.